Hello, I'm Deb Laurel, and I welcome you to What Managers Need to Know. We have been talking about delegation. The purpose of this series is to provide managers, particularly new managers, with tips, tools, and concepts that will help them be more effective in their role. And the format has been to do 5 sessions on each theme. And our theme today is delegation. And this is the 5th of our 5 series sessions. If you would introduce yourself. Oh, wonderful. Kat, you're there. If you'll introduce yourself in the comments, that would be wonderful. And I'm happy to have you. A little bit about me. I taught for the Executive Management Institute and the Small Business Development Center at the University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Business for 30 years. I've been a workplace learning and performance improvement consultant with my own business for 50 years. So I hopefully know a little something about management. What we have looked at in the past 4 sessions is what delegation involves. And we looked at the raw theory of delegation, responsibility, authority, and accountability. And we also looked at that time as to what keeps managers from delegating. In the second session, we looked at why delegate. We looked at what to delegate in session 3 using a time assessment table where you were able to prioritize what your key responsibilities are and how much time you're spending on all of your responsibilities to identify what you should continue to do for yourself and what you can delegate. I jumped ahead. That was the 4th session. The 3rd session was when to delegate. What are the triggers? And one of the things we talked about is that it's important to keep in mind that you don't have to delegate everything, because I think that's one thing that worries managers. So you don't have to delegate everything. So hello, Tabitha. Thank you. And delegating is sometimes scary. That's right. But we're going to make it less scary today because we're going to be looking at how to delegate. And we're going to look at different degrees of delegation, meaning that there are certain decisions that you're going to allow your staff to make, and you're going to keep in touch with them so that you're not surprised or confused or upset with what they do. And what you see on this slide is that there are degrees of delegation, and they go from where the employee is delegated full authority to make a decision and they don't need to come running to you, all the way down to where only the manager makes the decision and the employee has very little, if any, input other than providing facts. So let's look at each one of them and be thinking as we talk about them, what decisions you would have your employees make at those levels. So the first degree of delegation is to take action. No further contact with me is needed. You have hired that person to do something, to answer the phone. You don't need them running to you every time they have answered the phone. You've hired them to take care of customer service issues. You don't need them running to you every time they have handled a routine customer service issue. So what types of activities do you expect your employees to perform independently, where they will handle it. You trust them to do it. You don't need to hear about what they did. That was just part of their job. So give them the authority once hired for the position. Yes. However, we want to clarify that a little bit, Tabitha, in that there are certain activities that we expect people to do. They're routine. There are no issues around them. We hired them to do it. They are qualified to do it. We don't need to worry about them doing it. But there are other aspects of a job where we may want them to be reporting to us. So, for example, in degree 2, take action, but let me know what you did. So if you've hired me as a customer service representative and I'm supposed to handle calls from customers, you don't need to hear about the fact that I handled a call from a customer. That would be degree 1. However, if there was an issue and the customer service representative handled it, but you need to know about that issue because maybe there's some pattern of concerns that you need to take action about. You need that employee to let you know. So as a customer service rep, I may have said, yes, we can provide a discount for this, but then you need to let the manager know about that, because maybe discounts have not been the typical response in that particular situation. So, what are the types of information you need to know about after an employee has handled the situation?
Some of them, if they're small, they're still old, it's great stuff. No mesh, just mud, the hard mud, that'll hold it.
The types of information you need to know about after an employee has handled the situation. Yes, what challenges they had. Uh, Definitely, if there was a challenge, if there was an issue outside of the routine, if there is something that it's not out of the routine, but it's an issue that keeps coming up and appears to be problematic. How can I help improve the process? So you would want to know if there is a problem with the process, you'd want to know about it so you could help improve that. Thank you. So the first degree, handle it, take action. I don't need to hear about it if I'm the manager. If in the second degree, handle it, but let me know. Because if it's something out of the routine, if there's some pattern that I need to know about, bring it to my attention. And an after action review, as Kat is saying, what could go better? That would also be a reason why you would bring the customer service rep in this example, would bring the matter to the manager. Now we look at degree 3, and hopefully you're seeing in degree 1, the employee had full authority to make the decision. In degree 2, they had full authority, but now had to report about it. Here we have the employee has full authority, but has to run it by the manager because the manager might have additional information that needs to be factored into that decision. So look into the problem. Let me know what you intend to do. Do it unless I say not to. So, for example, it might have to do with a budgetary issue. And although the employee may be authorized to make decisions up to a certain amount of money, it's near budget time and the employee needs to run that by the manager, because the manager working on the budget can know whether or not that's a viable decision at this time. So the employee is making the decision, but needs to run it by the manager just in case there's additional information that needs to be factored in. In a moment, we're going to be moving away from the employee making the decision to the manager making the decision. So we're taking authority slowly away from the employee. So what are the types of decisions you want your employees to check with you before they implement them? Giving a discount, approving overtime, purchasing equipment are certain kinds of decisions where you might say to the employee, you have authority to make decisions up to $3,000 or something like that for equipment. But before you make that decision, just run it by me so we make sure that we have that amount in the budget. All right. Are there any other types of decisions you want your employees to check with you before they implement them?
There's only 3 on the ceiling, right, out here? Yeah, that short one right there, and that one, and this one, all the way.
All right. At this time, we're moving away from the employee initiating the decision and ultimately making the decision to the manager making the decision. So in this case, what the manager says is, look into the problem, let me know what you intend to do, but wait until I give approval. So that's a very different thing. Wait until I give approval. So if I'm the manager, I'm expecting that employee to have some ideas about what the decision should be, what action should be taken. But they can't take that action until we give approval for that. I want them to improve and show me how. Let's see. When it comes to money, wait for my approval before taking action. Yes. Yes, definitely. May also have to do with discounts, which is money, but perhaps it has to do with a policy change and for a program. The employee may work closely with that program, may see that a policy needs to be changed, but doesn't have authority to make that decision on their own. So those are the types of decisions you want your employees to get approval from you before they implement them. The 5th degree is very different. Up to this point, the employee has been coming to the manager with proposed decisions. Now the manager is going to the employee and saying, look into the problem, let me know what alternative actions are available with pros and cons, and recommend one for my approval. Now, perhaps this has to do with purchasing equipment. The employee would do the research, would identify pros and cons, would make a recommendation. Now, if that employee continually makes recommendations that the manager approves, then perhaps that employee is going to be given greater authority. So we might move them to delegation degree number 4. Tell me what you want to do, wait until I give approval. Or maybe to delegation level 3. Tell me what you want to do, just run it by me in case I have additional information you need to factor in. So here, look into the problem, let me know alternative actions available with pros and cons, recommend one with my approval. That employee needs a promotion. Yes, if they're making great decisions and making good recommendations, you can trust. It's going to build your trust in them, and you want to give them greater authority for decision making. So are there other types of recommendations you might expect employees to provide to you? Mention a policy, recommendations regarding equipment, could be recommendations regarding how program funds are spent. And then we get to delegation degree 6, where it is clearly in the manager's responsibility. Look into the problem, give me all the facts, I decide what to do. And in situations of personnel matters, this would be an appropriate degree of delegated decision-making authority, because we don't want anything other than the facts. We don't want their recommendations. It wouldn't be appropriate if it were a personnel matter. So other than personnel matters, what are the types of decisions that only you are authorized to make? Where you aren't even looking for recommendations. You just want facts. Is there anything else that comes to mind? Money and hiring. Yes, absolutely. That depending on your management style, you make the final hiring decision, you make the final firing decision, you make the final grievance decision, response to a grievance decision, if you have that option in your organization. So we have looked at degree number 1, take action, I don't need to hear about it. Degree 2, take action, but let me know what you did because I need to know about that. Take action, make a decision, just run it by me in case I have new information that you need to know. That would be degree 3. Degree 4, we flipped over to where tell me what you want to do, but wait until I give approval. Degree 5 is make recommendations, give me some pros and cons, I decide. And finally, degree 6, only I make the decision. I don't want your opinions. I don't want your recommendations. I just want the facts. So any questions so far about these degrees of delegated decision-making authority? I do want to mention that I see this as the life jacket for managers. Because if you are very clear regarding what tasks the employee has a level 1 and what tasks they've got to run, what decisions they have to run to you about, and then you monitor that, then you are always in control of what's going on. You like the clear degrees. Yes, I really think that they make it so much easier to delegate as long as you and your employee understand what they mean. Then you will not have an employee exceeding their decision-making authority. I'd like to close this look at delegation by reviewing a delegation skills checklist. And as I go through them, please think about your employees and whether or not this checklist each item is true or may need some work. So my employees and I agree on their job responsibilities. That means that those responsibilities are clear. Hopefully they are written down in a job description. What we don't, my employees and I agree on what results are expected. That means that those are also clarified and written down. It's not a situation where I'll know it when I see it. That doesn't help an employee. The employee needs to know what results, what outcomes are expected, and what degree of performance is expected. 3, my employees know how much authority they have. That's looking at those degrees of decision-making authority. I am accessible when my employees need to see me. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be accessible all the time. I have seen situations where employees are able to sign up for open hours during the day with a manager, or they actually put a sign up that says the degree to the issue priority of their issues, so that when the manager is walking around, the manager can see where issues need to be addressed. My employees seek and accept additional responsibility. I include my employees in making decisions that affect them. Now, that's a certain management style, but it's one that I advocate because we want employees to buy into those decisions. And when they are part of the making of the decision, it's much more likely that they will. I do very few things that my staff should do. Now, that's a really important one. If you have been promoted from a technical position into a position of management, and you were very comfortable and expert at what you used to do, it can be hard to step back from those responsibilities and realize that now your role is to accomplish things through people. So thinking about what it is should your staff do, because it's more their job than yours. Perhaps it is, you've looked at the delegated, the time use that you're spending on different tasks and realizing there are certain things that your staff should be doing because you need to be freed up to do other things. I frequently ask my employees, what can I do, stop doing, or do differently to help you do a better job? Good question, don't you think? I allow my employees to make mistakes. When you delegate new roles and new responsibilities to an employee, they're going to make mistakes. What we want to do is minimize the outcome of those mistakes. And one way we do that is by identifying clearly what level of degree of authority they have to make a decision. And also making sure that we are checking in. We don't just abdicate responsibility when we delegate. When we delegate, then it's our responsibility to follow up with that employee. I worked with an agency, Department of Transportation, and I heard a manager saying, well, we've hired contractors to do thus and so, but they're doing a terrible job. So every night I go and I fix that. Now, that's not delegation, and that makes no sense whatsoever, particularly if you're uh, paying someone to do the task. If somebody makes a mistake, it's time to sit down and talk about, all right, what happened? Do that after action review that Kat mentioned. Look at what the mistake is, what could have been done to avoid it, and now what's going to be done to fix it. I avoid the excuse that it takes more time to explain what to do than to do the job myself. This is one key barrier to managers delegating. And that's why I say it's important to first recognize that delegation is important for you, for the employee, for the organization, because it does free you up to do some of the more important tasks that you need to do from a strategic and planning standpoint. And this is where, if you don't have time to sit down with that employee and train them, then what you can do instead is sit down with them and have them watch what you do and explain it as you're doing it. And then give small tasks to that employee that will help you complete that entire job responsibility, and slowly add those tasks so that the employee can take them over entirely. My operation functions smoothly when I am absent. This means that you don't start to go out the door saying, cover me while I'm gone and don't give away the store. We need something that's specific. By this time, you should have delegated responsibilities to certain staff so you know you can trust them. Here, you want to be very clear about what is going on. Don't make assumptions that the employees know. So I think I mentioned having a owner of a business who complained to me that none of his employees were competent because every time he left the business, they made bad decisions. Well, they made bad decisions because he didn't give them any context. He didn't tell them what to expect. What he would do instead was give them a script. When the customer calls, tell them this, without any background to what the decision and the response is supposed to be about. So, of course, when the customer called and didn't follow that script, the poor employee had to guess what would be the best response. So be very clear what it is you expect people to do when you're gone, and give that responsibility to someone that you have delegated to in the past and know that you can trust. I have a specific follow-up procedure for monitoring performance on responsibilities which I have delegated. This is so important. And when I go through this list with managers, very often this is one that they cannot check off and say that they do. You do not abdicate responsibility for the task just because you delegated it. And you do yourself and the employee no service when you ignore them. When you set up a delegation, set up a monitoring schedule. Is the person going to be reporting to you every day? Is the person going to send you a report at the end of the week? Are you going to be observing on certain occasions? And then follow through on that plan. so that you can catch issues before they're an issue. You can look at decisions before they have negative consequences. My employees are given sufficient authority to perform the responsibilities which I have delegated to them. Hopefully that's clear and you see how you can delegate. I see. All right, I'm missing comments. Never give it so late or be the problem. Don't wait so long to delegate so you don't have the anxiety of what's going to happen if they don't do it. And don't jump lines of authority when I delegate. If you have supervisors who report to you, don't delegate directly to staff. Talk with the supervisor and have them delegate, because you don't want to erode the trust and respect for that supervisory position under you. So we've looked at the different degrees of delegation. You've seen how it begins with the employee having full authority to make a decision for routine tasks, to levels degree 6, the manager making the decision with just the facts, no recommendations from the employee. We've looked at the different delegation skills checklist. So my question is, do you have any questions? And how did you do with the checklist? Okay. So I'd be interested in knowing what your key takeaway is as we close this discussion on delegation. I'm creating my checklist and preparing for delegation. Great information. Thank you. Oh, well, thank you for coming. Now, follow the steps and don't skip rank is the takeaway. Yes. Great. Okay. Next week, we're going to be looking at coaching, because when you delegate and it's a new responsibility, certainly coaching is required to help that person learn and become comfortable with a new task. However, our major focus when we're looking at coaching beginning next week is coaching poor performers, because that tends to be an area that is uncomfortable for managers. And I want you to feel more comfortable with it. So we will look at what coaching involves, why coach, when to coach, going to introduce the do coach model, which tells you how to coach. And then we will end by looking at how to handle defensive responses. Because if it is a poor performer, it's a natural thing to get defensive when someone is not happy with what you're doing. And some of those defensive reactions can be very uncomfortable to manage as a manager. So we'll end with looking at those. So I thank you for coming. I see that Kat's takeaway was the need to practice delegation. And yes, as with every task, every responsibility, every new thing, it does take practice. So thank you, Kat. And thank you both for being here. And I'll look forward to seeing whoever shows up next week. Thank you. If you are interested in seeing the previous 4 sessions on delegation, you can go to my YouTube channel, and I have the link right there in the, I suppose I should put that in chat, which I'm not very good at doing. So I just offer that. If you go to Happy Tulips on YouTube, then you will find the streams, and that's where you'll find the previous 4 sessions. Thank you again for sharing your time with me. Have a good week. Why isn't this?